News of the day. And yes, there is news of the day on a Monday, April 6th. It's not the news we'd expected. This is where the playoffs were supposed to be starting. So, on that sad note, let's go ahead and get to some news of the day. And nothing terrifying. So, at a time where everything out there is terrifying, nothing terrifying here. Connor McDavid plays for these guys. He and Gary Roberts will be helping players stay in shape during self-isolation. So videos during the month of April. This is going to be tough for players. Like we talk a lot about, how long this can go on for. It's going to be tough for players. They're not going out on the ice. They are not going to be getting in the physical workouts that you normally would. These are players who've spent their whole lives being in the best shape that they can. Right now, some of them are going completely stir crazy because they're locked at home. Connor Garland is for instance, he's in self-isolation and his girlfriend is a nurse in the Boston area, so he's concerned about her. He can't see her. He can't go and see her. So this is a tough time for a lot of people, and it's easy to say, "Oh, athletes, they make all kinds of money." Yes, but they have family, they have friends, and we're all in this. So good on McDavid and Gary Roberts. Gary Roberts is if I ever decide I want to get into like awesome shape, that's who I'd go to be Gary Roberts, and because he's done a really good job with players over I want to say at least the last decade where he has saved careers. And it makes sense that he'd be the guy to do that because he's a guy who did it for himself. So he's just passing on what he learned along the way. I don't even know if I've done a Gary Roberts video. If I haven't, that's absolutely criminal and it needs to happen because Gary Roberts has been just as important after his career as he was during it. But he was a pretty good goal scorer and a pretty tough player during his career as well. Doug Wilson being interviewed, very coy about things, says Hurdle's good to go. Carlson's close. And he won't confirm anything about Joe Thornton return. Just saying, yeah, well, I talked to him, and yeah, no, we'll figure it out. And yeah, no, if Joe comes back, so he won't say whether or not Joe Thornton's coming back next year. Joe Thornton's coming back next year. I'm saying it now because that's what happens, especially if everything ends where it is right now. There are a lot of guys who may very well say, well, I've had time at home with my family. I want to stick around the house. He's not one of them. He's going to be chomping at the bit to get back out there and play because there's still that Stanley Cup ring he doesn't have. And I think Thornton's got at least one more year, and this stoppage makes that all the more likely. So yeah, Doug Wilson being coy, and why not? You've got time. You're probably a little bit bored. You get a chance to talk to the media on any level. Mess around with them a little bit. Sure, why not? Throw out like Gretzky's name too. Like I didn't talk about Gretzky coming back. We didn't ask you about Gretzky coming back. I've said too much, and then let him go with that. Maybe Mario Lemieux can play for us. How could he play for you? He's owning the Pittsburgh Penguins. I've said too much. Gretzky and Lemieux? Okay, I've said way too much. See, there you go. And then you can go from there. No word on Seattle's name today. Come on, Seattle. Come on, Ron Francis. And I'm going to say straight out, I honestly think one thing that's going to come out of this that I think we're going to see is the NHL 20 live streams that we're seeing, they're not performing particularly well. And I'm not just talking from my channel's perspective, but looking on Twitter, they're not getting anywhere near the kind of attention that they normally would. That like regular hockey would definitely, but they're petering out. So the NHL is going to have to do something else to increase interest from the fans. I think we're going to see jerseys get released early. I think we're going to see designs get released early. I'm looking at you, Vegas, with your third jersey. Dallas with their third jersey. And if fourth jerseys are coming, I think we're going to start seeing those sooner rather than later. I think teams that were planning on revealing things in August or July or at the draft in June, I think we'll see some early releases of those just to make sure that the fan interest is still there and to maintain their position in the public. Because what people forget is if this goes on for a long time, you may very well see certain franchises have a really hard time getting the locals to pay attention to what's going on. Now, the NHL and the NHLPA, and there was an NHL meeting, Board of Governors over the phone today, and everybody's waiting for it. They're going to cancel. Everything that I'm hearing, everything that seems to be going on is they're pushing that as far down the road. They don't feel like they have to make a decision. They really don't. They don't feel like there has to be a decision right now because their intention is still to do this. Start playing in late July or early August is the idea. And whether we get there or not, okay. So, late July, early August. And I know if you're in the United States, it's a tough week, and it's going to be a really, really bad week. But the idea is the numbers are supposed to start cresting and getting better after that, and then it's a matter of just being careful. Now, the idea is this, that you get the Stanley Cup awarded maybe in September. Then you have a squashed off season where you have the draft, you have free agency, arbitration, everything in basically a month. And then the season starts in November, minus the All-Star break, minus bye weeks, and they want a full 82-game schedule. The NHL is very clear they need a full 82-game schedule. They can't afford to go through something really long here without any kind of hockey, because players are going to lose, owners are going to lose, everybody's going to lose a ton. Now, there's other things that are more important. I'm not trying to say things aren't more important than that, but the NHL's taking a long wait-and-see approach with this. They don't see any reason to do just a full cancellation. They really don't. And so, I'm actually in the same space they are. Basically, okay, we'll all go home. Everybody sit at home, and we'll delay this. They can delay a decision on what they're going to do until July. They could legitimately wait until July and then say, all right, well, clearly things aren't getting better. We've waited 5 months, or 4 months. We've waited 4 months, and it's not getting better, so we're going to call it off. We'll have the draft July 15th. We'll have free agency August 1st, and we'll try to get back into training camps in September. And there you go. Because remember, if they play in August and they do that, you don't have to have training camp because everybody's still in shape. They only would have had a month off. We need a training camp if they go back into hockey during the summer. So that's what they're looking at. And for everybody, they should just cancel. They don't have to. They don't have to do it for you. They don't have to do it for me. They don't have to do it for the PA. The PA and the NHL are sitting down and going, all right, well, we'll make this decision at a later date. They haven't made any decision, and there's no ticking clock right now telling them they have to. As far as they're concerned, it's likely they don't have to worry about it until June at the earliest, where they would have to make a decision. And the other part of it is when I see people saying, well, they're going to cancel. If they knew for sure they were going to cancel, they would not have delayed the draft. They would not have delayed free agency. They would not have said, we're not going to have the awards in June. They wouldn't have made a decision on that either. The fact that they moved them all back tells me, and it seems to send the signal to the media as well, and while there's members of the media that say, just cancel, they don't seem to want to do that. Now, what's come out today as well is that there's been discussions about where to play. And this is going into what I had speculated as well. If you're not going to have fans in attendance, you don't need to play in Chicago. You don't need to play in New York. You don't need to play in Vancouver. You can play anywhere you want. And something else that I was reading on ESPN was these big cavernous 15, 16, 17,000 seat arenas, you probably don't want to play in an empty arena situation there. Now, if you get into a smaller arena, there's Prospera down here in Chilliwack. I think you get 3,500 people in it. A much smaller arena. Likely you can prop that up on TV and make it look exactly the same as a regular NHL game. And in the really small arenas, you could probably have some pretty cool camera angles, and you could have an ability to shoot the game in a way that we've never seen before. So Grand Forks, North Dakota has been discussed. This is where the NHL's at, where they're saying, all right, where could we play if we're going to have hockey players? Everybody's still in self-isolation. Now, where things get dicey and they can't even think about it is travel internationally has been shut off. So international travel isn't happening. And so until that changes, we're not going to see any kind of games. But I would also add to it this. One thing we've seen come out of everything that's going on is if you have money, you can get tested. If you have money, if you're spending a ton of money, you can probably get some kind of a business exemption. And I think we're going to see something go on where there's some kind of a business exemption just to make sure players get back. The players in Sweden, and I've seen reports on the news about Sweden. If you haven't been paying attention, and Lars, let me know if this has been your experience. But they've banned gatherings over 50 people. But they haven't closed every business the way that most businesses are closed here. And they're kind of saying, okay, now be good. So they're basically saying we trust the people in our country to do what they're supposed to do. As long as you guys are observing the rules and doing the whole distancing thing, we'll keep things open. And I think part of what's gone on in other countries is they don't trust people not to do what they're supposed to, so they're just closing it down. And so Sweden right now, the numbers aren't terrible. They're still scary, and there's a lot of scary numbers out there, and that situation could change. And apparently, according to a report I saw last night, there's some public pressure to perhaps close things up the same way they are elsewhere. But Oscar Klefbom of the Oilers said that he's doing his best to stay safe and avoid people and stay locked down. And so we'll see how that turns out for Sweden. Again, that might end up being where everybody ends up, where it's if you're old or you have compromised immune, you stay home. And if you can stay home, you do. But for other people, you can still go out. Just observe the distancing regulations. Going to be around for a while. But at some point, they got to open stuff up because supply lines and all that. Now, Reed Boucher. Canuck fans have been arguing for the last 2 years, I want to say, that Reed Boucher needs to be back with the Vancouver Canucks. Reed Boucher apparently is drawing interest from European leagues, and I would be very surprised if he doesn't end up going over to Europe. He's kind of that example of a player that it fits, where he's probably too good to be at the American Hockey League level, but his game doesn't project as being a solid top 6 NHL player, and he needs to be top 6 to really realize his potential. So those guys very often end up in Europe. So it looks like Boucher may end up there. Vegas Golden Knights providing 7,500 meals for nurses and doctors, adding to the list of players and teams that are doing the right thing during this shutdown. And so that's good news as well as nurses and doctors continue to get cheered in around the world. And again, I think once we come out of this, and we will, trust me, once we come out of this, I think the respect that doctors and nurses can get. Because I know there's been complaints before about how much doctors get, especially specialists. I don't think we're going to hear that anymore. It needs to be, you know what? You're worth that $200,000. Yeah, no, you go ahead and take that. There's nurses watching this going, I don't make anywhere near. No, I know what nurses make to start, and it's not what people think. Some people, anyways. Nurses don't necessarily get paid all that well. Depends on the area, the country, and all of that. But yeah, and it's not a pretty job either at the best of times. You do what? Oh, really? Oh, that's kind of gross. Anyways, so 7,500 meals will be provided by the Vegas Golden Knights to nurses and doctors locally. And speaking on the pause, so the players get their last paychecks April 15th, and there's some discussion among the NHLPA to just throw all of it into escrow. That they won't take any of it because they know the NHL is likely to fall really, really far short of their projections financially, which is going to kill the cap and it's going to really, really hurt everything going into this year. This is why what I think is, and I know people say compliance buyouts, I don't think compliance buyouts are going to cut it. I think we're going to have to see a league-wide pay cut taken by all the NHL players. And it'll have to be a percentage based on how much money the NHL loses because of what's going on right now and how far that could go. And it's going to really test the mettle of the NHLPA and the NHL Board of Governors as well. They have to work together. This is a partnership that's been uneasy at times, and now they have to work together. This has to be a situation where they both come together and say, all right, we agree on this. And since players were already mad about escrow as it was, and there are players that for many years have said teams keep 2 sets of books, the real one and then the one they show us when it comes to how much money we get paid, this could make that worse. So either they're going to come together and work something out, or divisions could get worse. And out of all of this, everything we're talking about right now, that's something that could end up then leading to a lockout a year down the road. So absolutely worst case scenario, we see a huge drop. Players don't agree with the NHL on how much players should get paid or how they're going to deal with it. And it leads to a lockout because it leads into the following collective bargaining agreement where they go, we're not going to sign anything because we don't trust you with the numbers. I really hope that the NHL and the NHLPA sit down, they work out an extension of the CBA, and they figure out the math, get the accountants to sit down and figure out the math to make sure that players are compensated and that teams are able to adjust their salaries so we don't have to worry about compliance buyouts. And you see guys getting their salaries adjusted. This is a once in a hopefully forever situation. It doesn't happen regularly. So you can't treat this like everything else. This can't be a regular bargaining chip. It has to be seen as one of those end of the world scenarios that you don't ever expect to see happen. And here we are. So yeah, there you go. And we will hopefully see some semblance of something improving. And again, I know, and I've seen, you know, a lot of posts about, hey, things aren't improving, and I don't see it, and I get it. And for people on the front lines, they don't see it. But there will be improvement if we do what we're supposed to do. If we all do what we're supposed to do and do our part, there will be some sense of improvement. And again, you know, I consumed some news last night, and I found myself flipping around between channels, and I was alarmed at how differently each news channel was reporting on what we're seeing in the world right now. Completely different. And I know people say, well, Fox News and CNN, it's not just them. This, around whatever news you consume around the globe, the only advice that I could give is don't just go with one source. Go with as many as possible, because, man, I am stunned at what I see, and yet I shouldn't be all that surprised that at a time where people should be, you know, working together to make this work, that as communities we seem to be doing that. But then you get into the media side of things and the political side of things, and man. And for the record, I'm just going to throw this in at the end of this video. I can't stand politicians top to bottom on either side. Really, really can't. Don't trust a damn one of them. And so there's the honest truth for you. I just don't. I think that they're in it. My biggest problem with it in general, and we really should be seeing this right now, is they're just trying to get reelected. It's not governance. It's okay. Now, how do we win the next election? No, why don't you guys try to make something better right now? Oh no, you're just playing for 4 years. Okay, all right. And it's not just this. I know what happens in the States, it happens in Canada too, where you can see things going on and you think, they're just doing this for votes in the next election. Why don't we actually do something? So hopefully we start seeing that fall away on some level, hopefully soon. All right. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for all your support during this. Yes, everything is down. We're all, you know, looking at concerns over jobs and over how long we're going to be in this, but we're all in it together. So, right? Thank you guys so much for all your support. Do stay safe. Do stay home where you can. Keep your hands nice and clean. That does go a long way. I'm saying it as somebody who very rarely gets the flu. Very, very rare I get the flu, and I know in part it's because during that season I'm especially conscious about cleaning my hands when I'm around other people and when I'm touching things that other people probably have as well. So maybe we all learn from that, and we see a drop in terms of illness during flu seasons. Look for positives. That's the best. That's the only thing I can do right now. Thanks again. I will talk to you guys again soon.